All right, welcome to the Sabercast podcast. I am Sweetwater, and today we're going to talk about things going on in the league. It's a new format I want to try out, so give me some room as I grow here, but the plan is just kind of give like a week in review of the past week and catch everybody up who hadn't paid attention to absolutely everything. So, we've got first player agency lives and then dies. We have the controversy that was Bradley Westfield's last 3 seasons in his career, and a few other things here on the podcast. So to start us out, the biggest controversy, the first player agency. Now, this was started up by Ermerazer, or I have honestly no idea. I'm even friends with him. I've talked to him a few times. Let's just call him for short. Anyway, so started up the first player agency with the idea of representing players in their contract negotiations. Rock Nation Sports was founded by its founder, Jay-Z, and his 2 agents, well, his first agent he brought on was Mr. Tim Pest, who had a incredible reputation and a tenuous grasp of the English language. Tim had immediately signed some big-name stars and made some announcements, as Jay-Z made some other announcements as well. The firm started quickly and with incredible fervor, and within probably about 2 hours had signed a good chunk of the big names, probably 15 or 20 big names in the NSFL, with plans to represent them throughout both just this upcoming contract negotiation and their upcoming careers. And then in a move that surprised absolutely nobody, the head office stepped in and immediately ruled that that was too fun, so they decided that we were going to no longer have agencies, and unless the players decided to have no affiliation. The user had no affiliation with an NSFL team or an NSFL player. So what happens? Jace Tuck immediately retires. Now Air has no affiliations to an NSFL team or player at the end of the season. So this would mean that starting in Season 11, we would have the first true player agency representing people in the contract negotiations. Now, obviously, this caused some significant controversy, with some people not thinking it was necessary and some people thinking it would only lead to collusion and cheating. I'm of the opinion that it was just fun. The furthest I was going to use it personally as a player who had signed with them was to take the idea of I would just negotiate, and I think this is how a few of us saw it. We would go into the contract room, we would negotiate with the GMs or with whoever's trying to sign us or whatever, and then talk about how that negotiation went, send that information off to our agent. The agent would then post a press release. Since you're hopefully signing a nice big contract, you shouldn't need too much in the way of money from just a quick press release. So it's kind of fun, at the very least, at the very most, maybe $100K or something off a release that says, hey, this person signed with this for this amount, or hey, this happened. They can promote themselves. It looked like it could have been a 3-person thing where the player, the agent, and the GM were all in the contract room together. The agent spoke on behalf of the player, with the player present in the room, to the GM, and that's how the negotiation would go. Personally, I don't see an issue with either one of those, but I can see why having an affiliation would cause a conflict of interest. So with that said, then there became other issues with the names of players, being as they were former players who were removed as multis, being Tim Pest, Matt James, and a couple of others. And so Rock Nation tried firing those guys, bringing on new people, and let's just say that didn't really work. So it unfortunately looks like we're going to be losing for from here on out. I've spoken with him. I'll let him make his official announcement. Obviously, he said that in his retirement post. If you didn't read it, he did talk about how he was probably going to be leaving the league for good. He'll be in other leagues, but in this one, he's just not feeling the love anymore, so he's heading out. And it is a shame. On a personal note, I'm really sad to see him go. He was a huge thing. Me and him had a whole bunch of contact in the seasons 3 and 4 when I was in the head office, as I was right in the heart of him. This is before he even got accused of being a multi. Everybody had accused him of rigging the sim, which I can attest he never did rig the sim. He may have had more favorable outcomes for his players due to him putting in way more work for his players, but at no point did it appear to me that he had been totally rigging the sims. So I still believe he's innocent of that. But on top of that, he was the simmer for season 2 to season until they got rid of him. He was one of the only reasons this league managed to stay afloat for as long as it did and really catch on traction as we head into season 10 here. It looked almost dead in the water for a couple of seasons because our head simmer had stepped down, our head updater had stepped down, a whole bunch of step downs from people in huge positions, and it almost looked like it was collapsing, but it's come back in no small part thanks to him. So Rock Nation seems to be dead in the water. I don't know if we've had an official death of it yet, but it's pretty close. But, I mean, it started and was ended in the course of 12 hours, and that's really just a shame to see. It could have been something fun to bring to the league. Who knows? Maybe eventually we'll see something come back up and we'll figure out a way to make it work. But right now it just seems like wrong person at the wrong time tried to start it, and unfortunately that doomed it from the start. Moving on, we have Mr. Bradley Westfield, the star receiver and savior of many a fantasy league, being accused of cheating over the last 3 seasons. It was found out that he did not regress properly. Instead of removing only earned TPE, he had actually been removing players' starting TPE. And that sparked 2 different debates, one of which was, what do we do when this kind of thing happens, and what do we do in this case? Now, the big argument here was the argument of the Carmel Gibson ruling. For those of you who weren't in the league, Carmel Gibson was I believe, tight end for the Yeti. I want to say it was the Yeti, but I think it was the Hawks. Regardless, Carmel Gibson was a tight end who had been created with entirely too many TPE to start with, which gave him improved stats in a season where the team with him, which I believe, like I said, I believe is the Hawks, where the Hawks would have gone on to beat the NSFC favorite Wraiths, and in the playoffs, in the single elim, to knock them off the championship and end up going to the Ultimates. And that caused its own huge controversy, who I'm sure you can talk to several members who were around there about. Some believing it didn't matter, some believing it made all the difference in that one game. But regardless, so now we have Westfield doing something similar, but not the same. Now, the Gibson ruling was very controversial at the time, and the ruling was we remove all the unearned TPE, and you suspend him for the season. Now, arguably, the question would be, is this the same kind of TPE violation in the same spirit as Carmel Gibson for Bradley Westfield or not? I don't believe it's the same one, but I do believe we need to establish rules. This is where the bigger second part comes from. We need to establish rules before things happen, not when they happen. And I know that's hard to do because you can't foresee everything. So some rules will come naturally, but TPE cheating should have been something that had been seen when the league was created, far, far ago. Obviously, people are going to try to cheat. It sucks, and I don't believe I just wanted to get this off the bat. I don't believe Westfield did it on purpose. I believe he did it because he had gotten away with it. He had been able to remove things. He either misunderstood the rules, which is, I guess, or he did not see that he saw that he could get away with removing TPE that was on his base build, which was not earned TPE. Realized that it would get through the updaters, and could just keep rolling on with that, and took advantage of it while he could. If that's the case, I mean, shame, but I really can't stop you, man. Do what you gotta do. Hustle your hustle, I guess. I don't know. But I don't think any of us would approve of abusing the system for personal gain, but we know it's going to happen. So anyway, the question becomes, how do we punish him? And how do we establish rules before something like this happens? So there's two arguments on this one. One of the arguments is you see it from it's the same or close enough to the Carmel Gibson thing, where we should be punishing him the same way despite the bad precedent it sets. And then there is this is an entirely different thing, so we punish him differently. I'm personally of the belief that we should not be doing it like and I'm just going to call them out here, some of the head office has been saying, which is that we should treat it as the same kind of infraction but punish differently, because that sets a terrible precedent for the league. Then we just establish that right off the bat, every single punishment is subjective, which I guess we could do if the league is willing to admit that. But saying that it was a different head office and it was a different time is not always the best thing in the world. We hear that all the time in politics, and it's just an excuse for you not taking the proper action or being afraid to take action. I'm of the mindset that if you didn't see my post, if you make a rule or a ruling, if you set a precedent, if you do whatever, if you are setting up these kinds of enforcements, you need to enforce them 100% of the way, 100% of the time. If you don't, you have no idea if they're good or not. It's until someone gets screwed over that they seem like great rulings. So here's what my proposal was this. Enforce it. Enforce it the way it was written. See what people don't like about it. See what people think would be fair about it. Because obviously you're going to have people on the extremes calling for his head and calling for nothing to happen. Something needs to happen. Something needs to happen every time this happens. And it should be the same thing every single time this happens. And we've only seen it twice, but we will see it again. I guarantee you. It's inherent to people. They're going to cheat, and they're going to get caught. We've seen people getting caught all the time in this league. It happens. So, here's what's up. Make a ruling. Take this one as a gimme. Use something new. HO, I implore you, find something that you can attribute, add it to the rulebook, add something else. Start adding punishments to the rulebook so we can see tangible evidence every single time it happens and what exactly has to happen. And if you start seeing incredible outrage from the entire league, you'll know it's time to change it. But you don't get to change it every time it happens. You get to enforce it and then change it afterward. I feel like I've been harping on this a lot, but it really does irk me, and it even irked me when I was in the head office. We didn't establish things to be pushed into the future. We would only set precedents for the time. And if HO hadn't have taken as big of a toll on me as it had, I'd still be in there pushing for this theory. So, where does that leave us with Westfield? As of right now, I don't believe Westfield will be punished all that severely, if at all. From what I can tell, they're going to roll back his ones he removed and remove some from probably some significant stats. If they're not doing that, I really believe they should do something like that. Obviously, he's retiring at the end of the season. It's not that big of a deal. I couldn't really care less about what the actual punishment is, so long as we set something up for it. Whatever punishment you give him is the exact punishment you should be giving to everybody who does the same thing, whether intentional or not. That is what happens. And on top of that, this brings up a totally different segment of this. Updaters. I know their job is super hard. I don't wish to do it. I saw the positioning opening. Not about that life. I don't envy their job. But they get paid quite a good amount to do it in the league. So, if you're in a paid position and you are sitting there in the league trying to establish, trying to do what your job is, and you fail to do your job on multiple occasions, you should either be punished, fined, or fired. And obviously, you should be punished, and that punishment should come in the form of fines or a firing. And I know firing's relatively off the table because it's so hard to find updaters. So, that kind of leaves us with fines. It's one of those things where, it just can't work if not everybody is doing everything they need to do. The updaters have their jobs. The simmers have their jobs. If the simmers fuck up the sim, they get way more backlash than a lot of these other jobs get. That being said, I'm not upset at the updater who did it. I don't know who it is even. I don't care who it is even. What I'm saying is we just need to... And obviously, things have gotten much better than they used to be. But if someone isn't performing properly, they should be punished in some way. And I hate saying punished because that's just... It seems too harsh because it's just an internet league. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be all having fun, but we can't have the fun unless we do the jobs that we were assigned. And should I be given another job? I know I shouldn't be one to talk because I kind of abandoned my HO post, but what happened? I was punished. I was removed from office. Done. Simple enough. So, just something to think about. We have updaters. The head updater should be checking things over. I'm of the opinion that the head updater, I don't know exactly what his duties are, but at the very least there should be an assistant to the head updater or something like that who goes through and audits things. We used to have audits. I went through the auditing process one time. All I had to do was submit to either the head updater or someone like him and say, hey, I don't know if I did all my TPE right. I need an audit. And honestly, at the end of a season, everybody should probably be audited. Or at the end of every couple of seasons or something, Just somebody to go through from start to finish on one entire person's thing. And say, okay, here's plus, here's minus, here's plus, here's minus, here's plus, here's minus. Here's all the TPE they should have earned, here's all the TPE they should have spent. Here's where it went wrong. Give them a good check. Give them good pay. Give them super kudos if you're a player who gets audited, even if they find that you screwed up because they're keeping the league in check. I think it'd be super helpful to have around. I could be wrong. Feel free to disagree with me. Feel free to tell me exactly what I'm wrong about in any part of this podcast. You may totally disagree with me and everything. Luckily, I don't really care if you disagree with me. I just hope you're entertained at the very least. And you keep an open mind, as I will try to do as well. Moving on, just kind of in this whole office role thing, in jobs of the league and stuff like that, having been nominated and elected and in HO for a little bit, I feel somewhat qualified to speak on this. And what I was going to say, and I've talked about this with a couple other people, I'm of the opinion that the head office should be an elected job and not a hired job by the HO. It kind of is almost incestuous in a way. And this is coming as someone who was in it. I saw what the hiring process was, and I know for a fact that people can get denied just because the rest of the HO doesn't like them, and that is not a good way to build a good HO. You should have people in there you disagree with. It shouldn't just be yes men. we always talk about greats in the world and how they do things. The Abraham Lincoln model of putting your opponents into your offices so that you can make sure that you're not always just getting a yes all the time is very, very helpful. The best way to do it the best way to run things, the way big things get done, the way great things get done, is to listen to those under you, consider their opinions, and if they've got something good to say, let it go. Use it. Don't just brush them off because they're not important. Something I think even I could have done, definitely, and I still strive to do, even in real life. But yeah, HO being elected would be an interesting thing, because it'd be interesting to see voter turnout for that. It'd be interesting to see who people nominate and who gets elected. If it were to be elected, what that would do for the league in terms of ruling, in terms of activity, in terms of all sorts of different stuff. I don't know exactly how it would change it. I'm not sure it would be the best idea. I'm just kind of throwing it out there. Tell me what you think if you're actually willing to. And tell me in the forums, not on the YouTube comments, because I'm not going to read the YouTube comments. Moving on, we got an amazing article by Sidranth about how the season is shaping up in preseason here, what we're looking for from the 8 major teams in the NSFL, and what we can look forward to as we go through the season. Hopes, dreams, fears, I guess not personal ones, but for teams, trying to see what exactly is going to go down this season, and I highly recommend reading through it. Sidranth does some amazing writing in general, and this was a really good one. In case the ultra quick version of it is the teams that were good last year should continue to be good, with the exception of Orange County, who's going through a little bit of a quarterback change, so they might go through some growing pains there. NOLA still looks good. The Hawks look real good. The Yeti look like they're up and coming. They got a couple of secret weapons on there. They've got, same with Philly, they've got a new running back with 100 speed on him who should be changing up the game. San Jose looks meh, as always. They could either go to the playoffs or finish 1-13, as they always do. I say this as a long time, obviously, it's Sabercast. Obviously, I was there. Other than that, teams really haven't moved a ton. We'll see what we've got here. Other things around the league, we got a couple other notable retirements, but nothing as big as Jace Tuck or as big as Bradley Westfield. Those are the big ones. And, of course, John Canton. But I'll tell you what, guys, it's kind of funny that, the week I come back here, drama starts up immediately. I've got to be some kind of harbinger of chaos in the league or something, because this has been an interesting week, to say the least, and I've only been back. But we got... Sorry, it's just the truth. I'm going to stick around, though, because it's more fun with a little more drama in it, All right, so this past week, as you guaranteed know, we definitely had all the fun of preseason, which means nothing but everything at the same time. Yes, your team is going to lose everything or win everything. I don't know. Pick one. But looking into it, we've got NSFL and DSFL preseason over. They went about how you'd expect, for no planning really going into them, with the exception of moving some players into new roles. We had the NSFL, so the NSFL didn't really give us much of a hint as to who's going to be great or terrible, except for the Yeti, where Axelson Applehort. Mr. Applehort threw for an insane game with 5 touchdowns, a stupid amount of yards. was almost embarrassing if you were the other team. But, again, preseason. They probably didn't set a defense for him. They probably didn't move players around a little bit to see better matchups and stuff. It's just kind of throw guys in and see what happens. So coming up here very, very soon, as in tonight, I believe, assuming that it happens tonight, we have the NSFL's Week 1 and Week 2. This is going to be a fun one, guys. We got some good games lined up. We have some... we get to see the first looks of these teams happening right now. We get to see the first looks of the teams in games for S10. Find out who's going to be big and who's going to be having issues. Everybody's going to get new looks, which will be interesting to see how the coaches play with their strats on this, because I don't know, guys. How do you plan for just nothing? Like, seriously, if you're a GM and you're listening to this, answer me. How do you plan for if a team's changed significantly? You got the call-ups, the send-downs, the draft. You've got new players, new strategies that you're working at. I mean, like, on both sides of the ball, you've got to just kind of throw whatever at the wall and hope it sticks. And I guess you just wait for the tape from the first two games to kind of see who's doing what and how things are moving and shaking out. I don't know. If you would love to give me more info on that, I would be very happy. I'm excited to see what's going to happen here. So, let's take a look at the matchups tonight. So, tonight we have the Hawks versus the Wraith, the Yeti versus the Outlaws, the Otters versus the Sabercats, and the Liberty versus NOLA. So, my predictions, if you haven't gotten your predictions in yet, it's too late. Starts at 8 p.m. As of recording right now, I'm looking at it, it's 7:53, so you are too late to get them in. Plus, by the time this comes out, it will be over anyway. So, my predictions, as of, again, 7:54 now it says, are I'm taking the Hawks over the Wraiths. I'm taking the Yeti over the Outlaws. I'm taking the Otters over the Sabercats. And I'm taking NOLA over Philly. I believe the Hawks are just the team to beat this year. Obviously, that's kind of holds true for them. The Hawks are the team to beat in the NSFC, I should say. They've been doing real well. They've had a strong showing. They did pretty well in preseason despite going up against some tough teams. But I believe they won every game they played with the exception of the game they played against the defending champs, the second line. So, I see them beating out the Wraiths, who have had some trouble here, who have always kind of been a perennial contender, but never really been able to make that jump. I see the Yeti beating the Outlaws. The Outlaws haven't been the same since had his thing. So that's a pretty easy one to call. But they could be making a comeback here. I think Otters beat the Sabercats. They've got way too much. Sabercats have a solid, a decent defense, I think, but I don't know that if they have the offense to push it through. The Otters are a pedal to the metal, nonstop scoring machine. So I believe they win out there. And then, not hard to pick defending champs over a team that's been having some struggles. So there's week 1. Week 2, we have the Hawks versus the Yeti, the Wraiths versus the Outlaws, Sabercats versus the Liberties, and the second line versus the Otters. Hawks and Yeti is going to be the match to watch for this one, I believe. We've got the powerhouse of the Hawks versus the Yeti, who are looking very strong. They got a nice, good new quarterback. They've got a pretty strong running back. They've got a lot going for them. It should be a good matchup. I think it'll be a defensive struggle, but I think it'll be an offensive. So that sounds controversial, but it's going to be not exactly like, but similar to what we saw in the actual Super Bowl with the Pats versus the Eagles. You got two high-scoring offenses going up against each other. The only difference is the defenses. So let's see what goes on. Wraiths versus Outlaws. toss-up to be sure, but I'm going to give that one to the Wraiths. They look like a little more of a complete team right now. Sabercats Liberty, that's going to be an interesting one because we get to see... that's going to be the other interesting one. The question is, who wins out of that one? I ended up picking the Liberty. I think they got enough of a secret weapon in that new running back to get through the Sabercats, but we'll see. Sabercats have a brand new shiny quarterback, so maybe it'll work out for them. Finally, we have the second line versus the Otters. Have to go second line defending champs versus the Otters, who are into regression and brand new quarterback. Hard to see that one going amazing for the Otters versus the second line. So, those are my quick predictions. Hopefully they pan out for me. Hopefully yours pan out for you if they are the same as mine or if they're different. I'm not going to be a dick about that. But that's our kind of our week in review. It's like I said, if you like this format, please let me know. If you hate this format, also please let me know. I'm looking to do something similar to it from here in the future. Just kind of like I said, like a week in review. Could end up being as short as this one. Could end up being longer. I think I'm going to start taking more notes and taking more time in my prep of this. This one was a little bit scattered as compared to what I'd like it to be, but it's just going to kind of be things on my mind as I go into these things. So, you know what I didn't give? My DSFL predictions. DSFL's coming up tomorrow. We have weeks 1 and 2 there, and that's going to be exciting too. And I should give that because I'm in the DSFL. See how this is? The DSFL wasn't really that popular when I was last in the league, so we got to start going for it now. So, DSFL. We have some different matchups, which hopefully are going to show up. So, preseason, same kind of thing. Surprise, surprise, bot teams don't win all that often. I'm sure the GMs wouldn't have it any other way. But we've got some fun stuff coming up for the DSFL. I'm excited because I get to see my player be in the game again. I get to actually see me put stuff up on the board instead of just watching my player move back and guard a receiver. So, week 1, we have the Luchadores versus the Marshals. We have the Pythons versus the Seawolves, and the Solar Bears versus the Coyotes. So, I believe the Luchadors are going to beat the Marshals. I don't know why. I just see that one happening. I see Pythons beating Seawolves, and I see Coyotes beating Solar Bears. Obviously, I'm going to pick in favor of the... I will generally always pick in favor of the controlled team over the bot team, as you should too. Not hard. All right. Next is Marshals Solar Bears. Again, Marshals over the Solar Bears. Easy one. Coyotes over the Seawolves. Coyotes. I'm just having fun with the names. Coyotes over the Seawolves. There you go. Coyotes versus Seawolves. I'm taking Coyotes over the Seawolves. Pythons Luchadors. I'm going to go Pythons on this one. I think they have the slightly stronger team. They're a little more complete. They've shown up a little bit more. Could come down to planning on this one. So, we'll see how that works out week 2. So, there you go. Week 1, I'm taking Luchas, Pythons, and Coyotes. And week 2, I'm taking Marshals, Coyotes, and Pythons. So, DSFL, I am ready to watch you. NSFL, you're starting right now. I'll probably head on over to the Twitch thing, cut this off. Thank you guys so much for listening. To those of you who do listen, I know it's not a lot of you. I know these can kind of get boring. Trying to think of ways to spice them up more. I know not everybody has half an hour to just go. So, if you would like, please leave me some info about what you liked, what you didn't like, what you think I could change, and if you would like to, go ahead and send me a PM either here or on Discord. Let me know if you'd like to be part of the podcast. I love to interview people. It's way more fun than me just rambling on into a microphone. Plus, you get to earn some money. So, with that all said, thank you guys very much. I'm going to go check out the NSFL games, week 1, and have a good week. Enjoy your Labor Day. Hopefully your weekend was great. I got drunk a whole bunch, played video games. Hopefully you did something fun yourself. Thanks, guys.